Today I am sharing 5 super easy fall Dollar Tree DIYs with you. If you like what you see today and you haven't hit that subscribe button, I hope you will. Now let's jump into it. A simple idea and a simple project. If you have some pumpkins, you want to change the color of them, go ahead, grab some spray paint. I chose orange and red. I took them out to my little spray painting tent. I spray painted 2 of them in orange, 1 of them in red. Again, you choose whatever colors match your color scheme the best. I wanted to go bold and a little bit more traditional this time. Once the spray paint had dried, I then went ahead with some E6000. I put it on the inner rim and stacked them on top of each other. I allowed them to lean just a little bit, think like Leaning Tower of Pisa. When they dried like that, I thought it was just really cute, whimsical. This is such an easy and fun idea. With this simple DIY, you just need a couple of these wooden pumpkins and some coordinating scrapbook paper. To start off with, I removed the raffia bows and any of the glue that was left behind, and then I went in and started sanding to get the glitter off. I realized rather quickly that that was going to take me a while and decided that I was going to go ahead and try using some Goo Gone. Courtney from Creative on the Cheap uses Goo Gone all the time. You guys, it worked rather well. It does remove some of the paint, but that's not a big deal because I was going to go ahead and paint over this, but it does leave an oily residue, and so I did go in with some rubbing alcohol in order to kind of clean that up, which also removes more of the paint. Again, not a big deal. After that, I went ahead and I painted both of the pumpkins, stem, and then the front, the back, the sides, everything in Waverly's chalk paint and ink. It's just a beautiful, dark, very dark black paint. I get asked all the time if you can use an acrylic paint, and yes, you can. You just might need an extra layer or 2 in order to get the same coverage. I then go in with a thin coat of Mod Podge and some pre-cut. I went ahead and pre-cut my paper. I got the paper from Hobby Lobby. I always get it when it is 4 for $1. You can't beat 25 cents. I love that deal. And then of course I have plenty of paper to use for other projects. I use the palm of my hand. That's my favorite tool for this, and I just really press it in order to avoid any lumps or bumps or wrinkles. Once the Mod Podge dries, if you've been around, you know that my favorite way to get the paper off is to sand it off. I just sand with a 60 grit sandpaper coming from the top of the paper and going around. I kind of do a little curving motion, and that gives me that perfect trim every time. The last thing I did was add a coordinating bow to each of the pumpkins, and then these little darlings are done. I think these would look so cute on a tiered tray, in a kitchen, just a nice little pop of color. So I thought I would show you how to make a quick and easy little riser using 3 of these Harvest Blessings or similar signs from the Dollar Tree. To start off with, I am using some tacky glue in order to combine these together. You could also use some Elmer's glue, and to hold them together while that dries, I go in with these clips you can get in the Crafter Square, but you can also use binder clips to do that. I chose to go in with 3, but you could make this larger if you wanted to. You would just need some more paper in order to do that. I only needed 1 sheet in order to cover this entire project. While the glue is still drying, I went ahead and moved on to the next step. So here I have my paper. I got this from Hobby Lobby. Again, 25 cents is what I pay. I always do 4 for $1. I laid my paper on there, put it, so I lined it up in the center, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna crease my edges. I hope that makes sense. So that I have that fold exactly where I need it. It will help me once I get the Mod Podge on there so that everything will lay nicer and I'm not having to try to crease it at that time. Then I go in with a thin coat of Mod Podge. I'm working in sections here, so I'm starting with the top of this. I lay it all on the top, making sure that I don't have too much Mod Podge, especially where the pieces are coming together, because there it might want to kind of gather. So if you do get it there, make sure that you wipe off any area that it kind of puddled, because then you'll end up with a chance of it bubbling. So thin coat, lay your paper on, smooth it out all the way to the edges, and then you can flip it on its side. From there, you're also going to lay down a thin coat of Mod Podge along the side and then fold your paper over and smooth it out. Once you have one side done, you're going to flip it over and then do the same thing to the other side. I also went ahead and added a tiny bit of Mod Podge on that underlip part and pressed the paper down onto that on both sides. Don't worry about the extra bit of paper yet. Let the Mod Podge set up just a tiny bit because you're gonna come back and trim that paper, and that is how you are going to cover your sides. I would make sure everything sets up a little bit before you come in and do this part. I rushed it a tiny bit too soon, and I did have to go in and add my clips again. But you're just gonna use your utility knife and you're gonna trim your sides, or you're gonna trim the paper right off that you're gonna be using for your sides. Once you have let the Mod Podge set up and the tacky glue or Elmer's glue, whatever you use to combine your 3 pieces to make the riser. For the side, I found it easier to just go ahead and pre-trim my piece, and once I did, I added a thin coat of Mod Podge and then laid my piece on. I made sure that I had my piece so that my white matched up with my gray and my gray matched up with my white. I felt like that helped continue that pattern and made it look like it was all one of the same, as you can see here. After that, I went ahead and I folded it over the back. I then used Mod Podge on that back side too to make sure I secured it like I had already done on the longer sides. If you don't like the extra that you have on that back side, then you can also trim that off with your utility knife. Once everything completely dries, you have this cute little riser that you have of course seen with other photos, but it also makes a nice backdrop as well. This is just a fun and simple idea. With all the cute little fall wagons going around, I wanted to create my own, and I was really inspired from Courtney from Creative on the Cheap and her cute little wooden crate wagon. If you haven't seen it, you need to go check that out. So I'm starting off with this little pumpkin box thing, and if someone can tell me what this is actually meant to be, I would love to know. But I kind of looks like a napkin holder, but it is kind of weirdly small for napkins. I'm mixing some paint together because I wanted a deeper orange, and all I had was pumpkin from Waverly, and it's a very bright orange. So I took pumpkin from Waverly, I took crimson because I wanted a little bit more of a reddy orange, and then just the tiniest bit of truffle to deepen it up. I absolutely love the color that I got by combining these 3 colors. That is what's so fun, is when you mix paint, you can definitely get a new color. So if you don't have the color that you want, play with what you got. I painted the entire piece in this color, the top, the bottom, inside, outside, everywhere. Now I get asked all the time if you can use like a traditional acrylic paint. Absolutely. This is a really thick paint, so it only required 1 coat. You just might need to go in with 2 or 3 coats, but as always, use your favorite paints, use what you have. For the handle of the wagon, I'm using a large popsicle stick. I just cut off the ends of that to get rid of the rounded bits. And for the handle bar of that, I'm using a smaller popsicle stick. These both came from Dollar Tree. For the handlebar part, I eyeballed it, but it honestly measured out to be 1.25 inches if you want precise measurement of that. I then sanded the ends on both sticks. I also did go ahead and trim off a tiny piece of the remainder smaller popsicle stick, and that is just to help me angle that handlebar once I go in and glue everything down so that it has some stability. I took some truffle, Waverly chalk paint and truffle, and painted everything. Once the paint dried, I'm going in with my hot glue gun in order to secure all of this down. Just using the tiniest bit of hot glue, I first go in with my little support piece and I place that down on the base of the pumpkin, and I make sure that that is set up. And then I go in with a little bit of hot glue on the tip and the underneath part of my wagon handle, and I press that into the corner of the base of the pumpkin, and I angle that, and then I go back in on that support piece. I add a little bit more hot glue and I attach the handle and that support piece together. Once I know those are both secure, I then go ahead and I add a little bit of hot glue on my handlebar, my handle, and then attach the handlebar to it. I also use hot glue in order to add the wheels. This is where I got inspired from Courtney's wagon. She used some sticks for her wheels, and I thought that was such a cute idea, so rustic looking. Now these did come from the Dollar Tree, but you could go into your own backyard, to your closest wooded area, grab a stick, trim it down, whatever you want to do or whatever you can find. So once the wheels were secure, this was done. I put in whatever I wanted to, but I would love to know, what would you have put in this cute little wagon? Here is such a simple project. All I did was take this apple sign from Dollar Tree. I'm using Waverly chalk paint in black to paint the apple stem and all, and then Waverly chalk paint in white in order to paint the leaf. After that, I went in with Waverly's Wax and Antique in order to paint the crate, or actually to stain the crate. So I brush on the wax and then I wipe it off with a clean rag. And I just do it in stages and it gives like a stain-like effect. Once everything dried, I went in with my Cricut and I did Farmer's Market open daily, but you can use a chalk marker or chalk, which you can get at the Dollar Tree, and do the exact same thing. I just have horrible handwriting. I will have a link to this down below to Design Space if anyone does have a Cricut. Once I got this on there, I went ahead and it was time to add the crate. I chose to use wood glue in order to add that, and I always like to put something heavy on top while it dries. How cute is this with these apples? I got them from the Target dollar spot. Here are some more fall inspiration videos for you to check out. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.